Picture this, one single phone call. What if that one call could set off a historic stock market boom, completely reroute the world's energy supplies, and maybe even change the course of the war in Ukraine? Well, it seems like that's exactly what just happened. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have just announced a deal that's rewriting the rules of trade. So let's break this all down and figure out what this Trump-Modi accord really means for the world and for you.
And boom, this is where it all began. Right after a call with Prime Minister Modi, President Trump drops this bombshell on social media. He's not just talking about a small change. He's announcing that the crushing 50% tariffs on India would be slashed. And the price for that? A jaw-dropping promise that India would completely stop buying Russian oil. This wasn't just some casual tweet. This was a geopolitical earthquake, plain and simple.
And the reaction? Well, it was immediate. And it was insane. We're talking absolute pandemonium in the Indian stock market. The Sensex index, which is kind of like their Dow Jones, it didn't just climb, it exploded. It surged over 3,600 points the second the market opened. This wasn't just a good day, folks. This was a historic, record-shattering event, all triggered by that one phone call.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this bombshell announcement, because once you start peeling back the layers, well, that's where things get really interesting. And, a whole lot more complicated.
Okay, so when you put their announcements side by side, you see something kind of strange. Trump's post? Super specific. Tariffs get slashed from 50% down to 18%, and India cuts off Russian oil. Simple. But then you look at Modi's post. He's celebrating the tariff relief for sure, but crickets on the oil part. Not a single word. So what gives? Is he dealing with political heat back home? Is this some 4D chess negotiation tactic? That silence, right there, is our first big clue that there's way more to this story.
You also heard Trump mention tackling non-tariff barriers. So what on earth are those? Think of them as the sneaky, hidden roadblocks in trade. It's not the big, obvious tax at the border. It's more like, mountains of red tape, special fees on services, or weird regulations designed to make it harder to sell your stuff. Getting rid of these is a really big deal in any serious trade agreement.
So, while the diplomats and analysts were scratching their heads trying to figure out the details, the market? It didn't waste a second. The reaction was just a frenzy. Pure, unfiltered financial mania.
And this right here tells the story. You can see exactly who the big winners were. Look at this. Textiles, jewelry, leather. These are the very sectors that had been getting hammered by those crazy high American tariffs. I mean, a 20% surge for textiles? That's not just a good day. For these industries, this news was an absolute lifeline.
And let's get even more specific. Look at these companies. You've got textile firms like KPR Mill just having the doors to the massive American market kicked wide open for them. Or take a leather company like Bata India. All of a sudden, they can actually compete on price with their rivals in the region. And jewelry giants like Titan? Oh yeah, they're looking at a potential gold rush. This is what it looks like when a policy change turns into real cash, literally overnight.
But the sheer scale of this, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. 13 lakh crore rupees. That's the amount of value that was added to Indian companies in just a few minutes. To put that in perspective, we're talking about over 150 billion US dollars. Just poof, created out of thin air. For any investor who was in on this, it was the definition of a dream come true.
Okay? But you know how it goes. After the party comes the hangover. And after all that market craziness, the skeptics started to chime in. The tough questions started flying. And suddenly, people were realizing this whole thing might not be as simple as a couple of social media posts.
And this timeline really shows you why they were skeptical. See, this deal didn't just happen overnight. This was the final act of a year-long drama, a total roller coaster. It started with friendly talks, then bam, Trump hits India with that massive tariff shock. Then you had months of super tense back-and-forth negotiations. So no, this wasn't some friendly handshake deal. This was the end of a long and pretty bitter trade fight.
Now, on one side, you have the official government story. India's finance minister came out and called it a major boost for Made in India. The classic line, it's going to create jobs, boost growth, the whole shebang.
But then, you get this reality check. Journalists at major outlets like The Hindu started asking a really simple but really important question. Where's the actual treaty? The signed, legal document? All anyone could point to was a tweet from Trump and some vague praise from Modi. And let's be honest, that is a very shaky foundation to build this kind of massive deal on.
And that leads us to a whole bunch of really big unanswered questions. Like, when is this thing actually going to be signed? And is it even possible for India's infrastructure to just switch off Russian oil and switch on American oil? And hey, what about those 18% tariffs that are still there? They still leave India at a disadvantage compared to its neighbors. These aren't just minor details. These questions go to the very heart of whether this deal is for real.
Okay, let's zoom in on what might be the biggest piece of this entire puzzle, rewriting the global energy map. Because this isn't just about trade. This move has huge, huge geopolitical consequences.
To really get how big this is, you need to understand this one number, 1.5 million. That's how many barrels of oil India was buying from Russia every single day. They were Russia's #1 customer for oil shipped by sea. You don't just stop that. It's not like flipping a light switch. It's like trying to change the direction of a massive river.
So let's just look at the before and after here. Before, India's game plan was simple: buy cheap, discounted oil from Russia. That was the whole driver. Now, the driver is getting those tariffs cut, and that means a complete shift. Instead of Russia, they'll be buying from the US and Venezuela. It's a total pivot in strategy, from just chasing the lowest price to prioritizing trade deals and supply security.
And we're not talking about a small change either. Part of this deal is reportedly a commitment from India to buy $500 billion worth of American stuff. Energy, tech, you name it. This isn't just a quick fix. This is about locking these two economies together for a long, long time.
All right, so let's zoom out, because this isn't just a story about the US and India. This is a new global power play, and the shockwaves are being felt all over the world.
And those shockwaves are hitting everywhere. Think about it. For Ukraine, this is fantastic news. It's a direct shot at Russia's main source of cash. For the US and India, it tightens their alliance against China. But then you have other groups like the Quad, where the trust has been seriously damaged by all this tariff fighting. And really, this whole episode shows what a transactional kind of foreign policy looks like in action.
So, where does that leave us? Well, the verdict is totally split. There are basically two schools of thought on what we just witnessed. Is this a genuine, game-changing shift in global power, or is it all just short-term hype? Let's lay it out. The bull case, the optimistic view, is that the markets are roaring, Indian exports will explode, Russia's war machine is getting defunded, and the US-India alliance is stronger than ever. But the bear case, the skeptical view, is pretty strong too. There's no actual treaty, the logistics of this energy shift are a nightmare, and the trust that was broken during the tariff wars, that's not so easy to fix. Both sides make a really good point. So we're left with the big question: game changer or glitch? Was this the moment that reshaped the global order for the next decade? Or just a temporary market freakout over a deal that was more talk than substance? I guess only time will tell.